Hello students, welcome to Darasa Online. Today I'll be taking you through in this particular subject, which is English Language 2. And here is our topic, which is appreciating literary works. But again, here is our subtopic, which is poetry. And in this, we'll be analyzing a poem. So I'll be taking you through a poem. We're going to pick one poem, then make an analysis. We're going to read together a poem, and thereafter we go to respond to the questions as per the poem. Now, having this said, now let's go to a poem itself. Students, here is our poem. This is one of our poem that I believe you have come across with. It's not so much new to most of you. So let us read together. Thin and lead, skinny and bald, the boy groans on the ground. Swollen stomach, full of waste. Thin legs, thin arms. Twitch at the boy, fights with fries over the empty plate. 10 years old, he looks older than 10 and younger than young. And so small as he wriggles, prisoner of his unproportioned body. Mother, shouts the boy, when I grow up, I'll carry a gun and not a pen. My son, shouts the mother. My son, cried the mother, you never live to carry a gun. There's no meat for us. Dear students, for you to understand the poem, you have to read twice, if not thrice. From there, you'll be able to tell what the poem is all about. One more thing is you'll be reading a poem, read between lines, because each word in a poem has been chosen carefully. The poet has chosen each word in this particular poem with a reason. So be careful in each, or pay attention in each and every word in given poem. Students, when you look at this poem, it tells us that there's somebody somewhere is observing this particular boy. Then that observer is coming up with this kind of description, that the boy looks skinny, thin. The boy is having a stomach which is swollen. And in the stomach there are full of waste. But again, an observer tells us that that boy fights with fries over the empty plate. But again, an observer tells us that the boy is 10 years old. He looks older than 10 and younger than young. Now, it goes on, and here an observer quotes the words from the mouth of the boy. That the boy is telling his mother that, mother, shout the boy, when I grow up, I'll carry a gun and not a pen. But again, we see the response of the mother. Now, an observer again is quoting the words from the mouth of the mother of a boy. Now, here are the words from the mouth of the mother, saying, my son, shout the mother. My son, cried the mother. You never live to carry a gun. There's no meat for us. Students, now, when you look at this particular poem now let's just look at this particular example of a boy who is having this kind of description, and the mother, and later on we'll go to the questions. So here we go. Now take an example that here is the boy, not the real boy in the poem, but just an example. Now an observer is telling us about the appearance of this very boy. Now look at his legs, arms, and look at his stomach. Again, the boy is having a bald. An observer keeps on telling us that this boy, despite the fact that he looks is poor fed, but he's so much determined. My dear students, this very boy fights with flies over empty plate. He fights with flies to feed his stomach. Now you can tell the state or the situation this boy lives in. As flies also fights to eat, again the boy also struggles to feed his stomach from these food remains. Dear students, an observer keeps on telling us in the poem, as he says, this boy, when he grows up, he won't carry a pen. He's going to carry a gun. In the said area, take this as an example, not the real boy discussed in the poem. So the boy now wishes to carry a gun. He has a hope that by carrying a gun, maybe his socioeconomic problems will be solved. Now, as the boy tells his mother that, "Mother, when I grow up, I'll carry a gun and not a pen." Now, here is the mother's response. Here the mother. Now the mother cries. She says, "Son, you'll never live by carrying a gun. There's no meat for us." And the boy thinks of carrying a gun. He thinks of carrying a gun to bring positive changes. He thinks of radical changes. Now, you may ask yourself, carrying a gun to shoot who? But the mother is now bitterly telling her son that, "My son, you never live by carrying a gun." Having look at these pictures as examples. Now, let's go to the questions. Now, one of the questions says, identify one language device and state why such a device has been used in the poem. Dear students, you remember when analyzing a poem, there are times when you are being asked about questions to do with language devices. So you need to have an understanding that when you speak about a language device, what are the things that we are supposed to touch or to discuss with? What are the things that included when one analyzes a poem on this particular aspect or device, which is language device? Now, here is just an example to guide you. The use of parallelism, that the poet has used parallelism to show the feelings of disappointment of a mother and her child. It's revealed in the verses below. Now, parallelism is a form of repetition. You can see from here, from these verses, "My son, shout the mother. My son, cried the mother." Now, with this kind of repetition, my son, we call it parallelism. So I don't have to go back to the definition of parallelism because I understand that you know it very well. So in the poem, we see parallelism. Dear students, now the reason as to why parallelism was being used here is to express the feelings or to emphasize the feelings of disappointment of this mother. As here she cries, she's not happy, she's not pleased with the wishes of her son is going to kill a gun and not a pen. So she tells her son that the son would never live by carrying a gun. So this my son has been repeated to emphasize the point that this mother is really, really disappointed. Mother wishes not to see her child carrying a gun. Perhaps mother wishes her son carrying a pen and not otherwise. That is parallelism. Now, as said earlier, that here you have been asked one language device, but you may even ask, like, identify 2 or 3 language devices and state why such devices have been used. But because of the time, we just identify only one language device. You may come up with so many: hyperboles, paradox, imagery, symbolism, etc. Here is our next question, which asks, identify one sound device and state why such a device has been used. Students, with reference to the similar poem, that there's the use of alliteration, and I'm quite sure that this term, this sound device alliteration, is quite clear to you. Now, the poet has used alliteration in order to create or achieve music effect or metrical requirements. That the repetition of identical consonant sound appearing at the beginning of each word in a verse of a poem. That's the alliteration. Now, it has been used to show or to achieve the so-called metrical requirements. Now, the verses below here, or this verse below, swollen stomach. Now, the sound S here and here. It's alliteration. It alliterates. Back again here, my dear students. You have been asked just one sound device, but the sound device, it includes a lot of aspects or devices in here. Today is about you have identified alliteration, but in here there are rhythm, there are rhyme, there are assonance, again there are consonants. All these fall in this particular device, which is sound device. So I remind you to read all the sound devices found in this particular aspect. So back to here, you agree with me that there is this kind of alliteration in a given poem. So again, you need to be able to identify other sound devices found in a given poem. Students, let us move to another question. Here we come, that we are told to describe the structure of the poem. Now, on the structural device, when we are told to analyze a poem structurally, that means the way a poem looks like, or the way a poem appears. Now, when you are told to describe the structure of the poem, now, obvious, you focus on the number of stanzas of a given poem. Look at the number of verses in each stanza. But again, the length of the verses in each stanza. Now, with reference to our poem now, I believe you are able now to tell or to count number of stanzas that the poem we have discussed, of which is Dying Child, how many stanzas in there? How many verses in each stanza? How short, how long are the verses in each stanza? But again, in structure, you look at the punctuations. If the poem is punctuated, now you'll be telling that you see question marks, commas, full stops, semicolons, full colons, etc. If there are opening and closing, if there are quotation marks, all these are found in the structure. But again, if there is a refrain in that particular poem, also that part falls on this particular structure. So I believe now, if you were to be asked that how many stanzas are found in the given poem, how many number of verses in each stanza, but again, how long or how short are the verses? So I believe now you'll be able to tell. Students, allow me to move to the next question. Briefly explain the lessons you have learned from the poem. Students, remember messages. These are the lessons that you learn, that one gets after reading a poem. Remember that poets are also teachers. They are teaching us. They are teaching people. Now, in the poem that we have read together, what do you learn? What kind of lesson have you received or you got from the poem? Now, here, just an example that one of the lessons or the message that one learned or you have learned, because you have been asked that people should seek for legal or non-violent method when fight for their rights. Students, with this one that we are learning, we are taught here that it's not healthy for one to seek for using a gun, using violent method, to fight or when fight for your statutory rights. The boy in the poem is wishing to carry a gun as a method to get rid of the problems. Now, in this particular poem, we are taught, we are reminded that we are learning that we should not use violence when fight for our rights. We should use diplomatic means in solving our problems. Since by the use of violence, it can lead to so many problems: bloodshed, death, hatred. And if we are living in a society which is full of hatred, then it's not a safe place to live. So the poet is teaching us here that we should seek for legal or non-violent method when fight for the rights of our rights. Even you at your school always struggle or seek for peaceful means, non-violent method to get your grievances or problem solved. Either at your school or at home or at college. Students, the boy here seeks for radical means to get the problem solved, of which doesn't work, doesn't help. However, there are times people are forced to use guns or violence. Those times people use armed struggle to get their problem solved. Students, the other lesson that one can learn, or the other message that one has get from the poem, is parents or guardians should work hard so as to provide basic needs for their families. The parents or the guardians ought not to rely on the government to provide them with everything. Poverty can only be kicked out by working hard. Now we are told in the poem that that woman who cries, her child is poor, he looks so skinny. Now the poet reminds us that the guardians, the parents, should work hard, either in the farms, engaging into small businesses or enterprises, so as to meet the needs of the family, like food, shelter, and cloth, instead of complaining or crying that the government should provide for them. It's something which is not healthy. People ought to work very hard and meet the needs of the families. So in this particular poem, then that's a message. You can learn a lot of things in there. Here are just examples. One would say that the other message is being a revengeful person should be discouraged, or revenge should be discouraged, since revenge contributes to hatred. Now in the poem, the boy plans to revenge against the class which has contributed to his miserable life. So to say to revenge is not something good. If revenge is not good, then we need to forgive one another so as to make the world a better place. The mother is telling her son that by revenging, also that boy will die. Students, remember, here you can have so many messages or lessons. So be able to tell even other lessons that you have learned from the poem we have read. Now, here again is our question. It asks, why did the poet use the words gun and a pen? Students, here are the two words. A gun and a pen. Now, the question here, why the poet has used such a word? Now, quickly, one would say the poet has used the word gun as a symbol that stands for violence or struggle. The gun shows the boy's radical feelings. So it has been used to show the boy's radical feelings and thus wishes to carry a gun as a quick means of getting rid of challenges he experiences in the society. So to him, by carrying a pen, will delay to bring changes. So he thinks of carrying a gun means using a violent method, violent ways to get things or to get out of the problems. So again, we are asked that why, again, a poet has decided to use a pen. Now, a pen again here as a symbol that stands for education or diplomacy or non-violence, non-violent method. The pen shows the importance of education. So the poet has used the pen to show the importance of education or the importance of non-violence method in solving socio-economic and political problems. That people should come on the round table and discuss their grievances, and later on they find a solution. Instead of carrying a gun, they should carry a pen. A pen, as said earlier, stand for a symbol or stand for an education or diplomacy using peaceful means of sorting problems. By using a gun, it doesn't help. It doesn't work all the time. Gun will lead to so many problems. Gun will lead to death. Gun will lead to bloodshed. A gun will lead to permanent hatred. When people sit on the round table and resolve their differences, then agree and sign, have an agreement, there will make the world or a society a peaceful place. So again, we are reminded in the poem that even the mother of the boy is not pleased, is not happy, is not happy when her boy is planning to carry a gun. Now, if you're the one, my students, will you support the boy to carry a gun or by carrying a gun? Will you will you support the mother of the boy who wants a boy not carrying a gun? Students, let's move to another question. Now, we are told here to explain the possible themes, the central ideas found in a given poem that we have read. Now, here are some of those. Not necessarily be these ones. You may come up with so many themes. Now, here's just a guiding in how to present your theme when it comes to responding a question regarding the theme. Here's the way that one of the themes portrayed in the poem is malnutrition. But again, one would say one of the themes portrayed in the poem is classes. One would say one of the themes found in the poem is awareness, etc., or consciousness. One would say one of the themes portrayed in the poem is poverty, etc. Now, As I said, here is just an example. You may come up with so many themes. Now, here we go. One of the themes portrayed in the poem is malnutrition. The word malnutrition means poor health, which is the result of lack of balanced diet or poor feeding. We have seen the picture of the boy who is having a swollen stomach, thin legs, thin arms, and we are told that the stomach of the boy is full of wastes. So obvious that boy is suffering from this problem. Now, in the poem, a child or a boy is suffering due to lack of balanced diet. Now, this malnutrition, which we have identified, is supported by these verses. That swollen stomach, full of waste, thin legs, thin arms. Remember to quote. Whenever you are responding to a poetic question, you have to quote some verses to support that, yes, there is the issue of malnutrition, or there is a theme of malnutrition in the given poem. This is your evidence. So I encourage you to remember this, to remember quoting, selecting the verses which support your points you have raised above. Students, having shown the quotation, now you have to tell that from the above quotation, it shows that the child is suffering due to lack of balanced diet. It is therefore, this again is very much important for you to cement your point that you have identified malnutrition. Now, what is your core? What is your opinion? What do you say about malnutrition? Now, in this particular sentence now, it cements your point that it is therefore advised that parents should take responsibility of providing a balanced meal to children. We parents, we have such a role to play by making sure that our kids are well fed. The meal that is given to our children contains all the nutrients are needed in the body. We need our children to their bodies to be nourished, and that's going to be done when parents work hard. Students, just move to the next point. Poverty also is one of the themes. Now, with this one, with poverty, the same formula that you can use to defend your point. Explain that point in a topic sentence, then where that point or theme found in the poem, then a quotation. Choose the verses which support that there is a poverty in the given poem. But again, after quotation or after showing references, then you tell below there. Then again, you provide your opinion. What's your core? What's your advice? That you have seen poverty now. What do you say about poverty? Should we embrace poverty? Should we entertain poverty? What's your plea? Students, how can you describe the feeling of the boy? Here again is our question. Now, quickly, the boy in the poem is courageous. He's having the feelings of being courageous. Again, he's the feelings of optimistic, the feeling of confidence, a feeling of is hopeful. The boy is courageous to fight against an present situation, despite the fact that he's thin, he's having a swollen stomach, but he wishes to struggle. The boy has not lost the hope. He's still courageous. As he says, he tells his mother, "Mother," he shouts the boy, "when I grow up, I'll carry a gun and not a pen." So this reference or quotation shows that the boy is optimistic. The boy tells his mother courageously that, "Mother, I'll do this and not this one." So he's having a hope that by carrying a gun will help him or get the problem solved. That's the hope. The same thing to you students. You need to have hope. You need to be courageous. You need to be an optimistic person. in whatever you are doing, no matter the situation you're going through, how horrible it is, but you should have hope. You should have hope that you'll pass even your exam. Yes, you should. Now, that's the feeling of the boy in the poem. Let's just move to next point. In which way the poem is relevant to Tanzania today? Remember, a work of art reflects the social realities, reflects what is happening. All the happenings in your society is being reflected by literature. Now, the poem here, the poem we have read, to what extent such a poem is relevant to Tanzania today? Now here, there must be multiple responses, of which I believe you can tell. Now one would say, the poem is relevant to Tanzania today since there are children who suffer from malnutrition due to poverty. Yeah, of course it's true. There are reports which shows malnutrition in Tanzania. There are reports which shows children having swollen stomach. There are children who are living in poverty. There are also children in Tanzania who are courageous, who are optimistic and conscious about their unpleasant situation. Students, having this said, let's go for a break and we'll come back after a while. Thank you. Welcome back to our session again. Now, here is our question. It asks, in which ways the poem is relevant to Tanzania today? Now, ask yourself that the poem you have read, the issues raised in there, the issues raised in that particular poem, are they relevant to your society or to Tanzania today? Now, quickly, one would say, yes, obvious is relevant because literature reflects social realities. All the happenings in our societies is being reflected by literature. So obvious, the poem is relevant. Now, here is our response, that the poem is relevant to Tanzania today since there are children who suffer from malnutrition due to poverty. Yes, there are evidence, there are reports or research reports which show that here in Tanzania, there are children who suffer from malnutrition. So, there are also children who are courageous, who are optimistic, the children who are conscious, the children who are aware of an unpleasant situation they live in, despite the fact that they live in such horrible, or they are living a miserable life, but they are aware and they have hope. They are so optimistic that their future or their tomorrow will never be the same. Just like a boy in the poem is wishing to carry a gun and the means of solving a problem. So, my dear students, the poem is relevant to our or to your society. Now, again, here is a question that wants you to describe the mood that you get. You yourself, what kind of mood do you get from the poem? What kind of feelings? How do you feel having read that particular poem? Do you feel excited? Do you feel unhappy? Now, what kind of feeling do you get? You as a reader, you as an audience. Now, one would quickly say the mood or the feeling that, of unhappiness, sadness, disheartened, due to the fact that the boy is suffering from malnutrition. Now, remember the picture of the boy. Remember the description of the boy in the poem, that the boy is thin, the boy is skinny, the boy is fighting flies over empty plates. Now, how do you feel seeing such a boy? Obvious, you'll be having this kind of feelings. But again, the words from the boy's mother make one, or make you and I, feel unhappy. The mother tells the boy, while crying, saying, my son, you never live by carrying a gun. There's no meat for us. With such a words from the mother, she says such a words while crying. Obvious, it makes you and I feel unhappy. But again, one would say, the feeling of courageousness, the feeling of not losing hope, no matter the situation. Yes, one can get these kind of feelings that the boy in the poem, or the poem tells people to be courageous despite the situation, despite horrible situation that they live in. That people should never lose hope. And the boy in the poem, that when he grows up, he'll do something. So the same to you. You should be having a feeling of not losing hope, no matter the situation you are going through. You should have a plan. You should have wishes. The boy is thin, but he has a dream that when, the same thing that you should have. So the feeling that one gets, a mix of feelings. There is a sadness. Again, there are feelings of positive, being courageous, being an optimistic person, a person who is having a hope that his or her tomorrow won't be the same. Students, let's move to other questions. Students, let's start with this first question that asks, if you were given a chance to meet the boy in the poem, what kind of advice would you give him? Thin as he looks, having a swollen stomach full of waste, the same boy tells his mother that, mother, shouts the boy, when I grow up, I'll carry a gun and not a pen. Now today, you meet a boy, you meet such a boy, what kind of advice or how would you advise that boy? The same, if you happen to meet with that woman, the mother of the boy, what kind of advice or how would you advise him? How would you advise the mother of the boy? Students, again, here I identify paradox statement using the poem. Now, go back to the poem, read it, then find a paradox as a statement which brings contradiction. Now, is there any statement which create contradiction? Now, that's your job. Our third question asks, describe the images or imagery that one gets from the poem. Now, look at the words which appeals to your senses, then makes you create a mental picture. So you're told to describe the imagery. Obviously, we get imagery through the words that we come across in the work of art. Those words are the ones which evokes. Those words evoke our feelings, or appeal to our feelings. The feelings of taste, vision, hearing, touch. Now, we are told the boy is thin, skinny, thin leg, thin arms, having a swollen stomach. Now, can you describe the imagery? Again, it's your job. Dear students, this marks the end of our session today. Thank you for your attention. I'll meet you next time. Keep on reading other poems, then describe, analyze such poems. By doing that, you'll be good. You'll verse very well when it comes to poem analysis. Thank you. May God bless you.